Some engines are legends. These ones? Absolute disasters. We're counting down the 15 least reliable outboards ever made. Engines so bad, they made mechanics rich and boaters cry. They stalled, smoked, overheated, and occasionally just gave up mid-lake like a hungover intern. From tiny trawlers to high-horsepower heartbreakers, these motors didn't just fail, they performed their failures. If you've ever been left drifting and questioning life, you might know one of these personally, or stay tuned to find out if you're in for an unpleasant surprise. The Chrysler 105 horsepower was a shining example of how not to build an outboard. Launched in the 1970s, it aimed to compete with Mercury and Johnson, but quickly earned a reputation for unreliability. The core issue? The Presto Light ignition system, a component so infamous it could stall the engine if you looked at it funny. Spark loss, misfires, and random shutdowns were standard features. Cooling was just as sketchy. The water pump impellers were made from soft rubber that deteriorated quickly, often leading to overheating. Combine that with weak gear case seals and thin cylinder walls, and you had a motor that practically begged to self-destruct. Even basic maintenance became an ordeal due to poor parts availability and compatibility. On paper, it promised 105 horses. In practice, it gave you about 85 and a mechanic's phone number on speed dial. For many, this engine didn't just ruin boating trips, it ruined their trust in the entire Chrysler Marine division. The Yamaha F40B was supposed to be a dependable mid-range four-stroke, but early 2000s models had a hidden flaw that turned them into ticking time bombs. The issue lay in the exhaust system, specifically the inner water-jacketed passages. Over time, moisture and heat led to internal corrosion that wasn't visible from the outside. As rust ate through the metal, water began seeping into the combustion chambers, slowly destroying the engine from the inside. This water intrusion led to symptoms like rough idling, loss of power, and eventually total compression failure. By the time most owners realized what was happening, the damage was already terminal. Yamaha later addressed the issue in revised models, but the early F40Bs were already out in the wild, especially on the used market. Many mechanics began advising buyers to avoid early F40s altogether, and while Yamaha's name still holds weight, this model remains a rare stain on their record. Quiet motor, sure, until it quietly died. Now, real quick, if you've ever sworn at an engine more than your ex, hit that subscribe button, and tell us your worst outboard horror story in the comments. The most cursed reply wins eternal sympathy. But don't go anywhere, the worst engines are still ahead, including one that literally helped bankrupt its manufacturer, and another that looked great on paper, right up until it exploded at full throttle. You do not want to miss what's coming. On paper, the Mercury 4-horsepower four-stroke seemed perfect for dinghies, tenders, and small inflatables. Lightweight, quiet, and efficient. What could go wrong? Well, a lot. Owners soon discovered that the cooling system had a serious design flaw. The thermostat housing was prone to corrosion and blockage, which often led to overheating. Combine that with a finicky fuel system, and this motor turned short trips into long paddles home. Vapor lock was another common headache, especially in warm climates. The engine would run fine until you shut it off, then refuse to restart without an extended cooldown and a lot of swearing. The recoil starter often failed too, leaving owners with a 60-pound anchor instead of an outboard. Despite being a modern four-stroke, the 4HP became infamous for reliability issues more common in decades-old motors. It may have looked like a convenient option, but for many boaters, it became the reason they stopped trusting small and simple. Not all Johnson V4s were bad, but the late 80s 90 HP models were the exception. Built during a period of rushed designs and cost-cutting, these engines had serious durability issues. The biggest culprit: poorly designed cylinder walls that were too thin to handle sustained heat and pressure. Overheating wasn't just a risk, it was practically a guarantee on warm days or under heavy loads. The cooling passages in the heads were prone to blockage, and the water jackets around the cylinders didn't circulate efficiently. As a result, detonation, head gasket failure, and cylinder scoring became regular complaints. Even when repaired, many engines would fail again within a season, sometimes sooner. Compression loss over time was almost inevitable. While earlier and later Johnson V4s earned a reputation for power and longevity, this specific version became known in shops as a repeat customer. You didn't just fix it once, you fixed it again, then fixed it again, and eventually you learned to sell the boat instead. The Suzuki DT30 from the 1980s looked like a solid, no-frills two-stroke, lightweight, punchy, and easy to mount. It checked all the boxes. But under the hood, it hid one fatal flaw: an oil injection system that loved to fail silently. At the heart of the issue was a plastic drive gear connected to the oil pump. If that gear stripped or slipped, and it often did, oil flow would stop completely without triggering any warning. The result? Cylinders ran dry, overheated, and eventually seized. By the time owners noticed anything wrong, the engine was already toast. Many boaters ended up removing the injection system entirely and switching to premix just to stay safe, but not before paying for a rebuild. It's a shame, because the DT30 had great potential, but Suzuki's choice of fragile materials in critical areas turned it into a gamble. It wasn't a question of if it would fail, only when and how much it would cost. Honda's reputation for bulletproof engineering took a hit with the BF100. Built during a transitional period in Honda's outboard development, this four-stroke engine struggled with real-world reliability, especially in salt water. Its biggest flaw was poor cooling channel design around the cylinder head. That flaw led to frequent overheating and, worse, early head gasket failure. Once the gasket blew, coolant mixed with engine oil, creating a milky mess that spelled the end for many of these motors. Corrosion was another major enemy. Despite Honda's anti-corrosion coatings, the BF100 often suffered from aggressive saltwater intrusion in the exhaust and cooling passages. Owners reported pitting, clogged water jackets, and even internal rust after just a few seasons in brackish or coastal conditions. To make matters worse, the BF100 was underpowered for its weight. A heavy engine that struggled to get light boats on plane. It had all the charm of a Honda sedan, towing a trailer full of regrets. Reliable? Not this time. The Force 15 horsepower wasn't just a budget motor, it felt like one too. Born from the remnants of Chrysler's Marine division and later sold under the Brunswick-owned Force brand, this engine combined outdated Chrysler engineering with bargain bin Mercury components. The result? A twitchy, temperamental two-stroke that never quite ran right. Starting it cold was an adventure, and keeping it idling without stalling took a miracle or constant throttle fiddling. The carburetor was notoriously hard to tune and would foul easily. Spark was weak and inconsistent thanks to a fragile ignition system, and starter recoil springs had a nasty habit of breaking at the worst possible moment. Owners reported electrical gremlins, surging at mid-throttle, and even bolts backing out under vibration. What made it worse? Parts compatibility was a nightmare. Force used whatever was available that year, so two identical-looking engines might have completely different internals. As one mechanic put it, it's not an outboard, it's a puzzle with a prop. Still watching and nodding in pain? You're our kind of boater. Hit subscribe. The worst engines are yet to come. The Evinrude Ficht 115 HP was supposed to be a revolution. Clean burning, fuel injected, and ready to meet strict EPA standards. Instead, it became the engine that nearly destroyed a company. OMC rushed the Ficht system to market without adequate testing, and the result was catastrophic. Early models suffered from lean running conditions that led to detonation, piston meltdowns, and sudden engine failure, often with less than 100 hours on the clock. The fuel injectors were unreliable, the ECU tuning was erratic, and the oiling system struggled to keep up under load. Combine that with excessive carbon buildup and a fragile direct injection design, and you had a motor that was more science experiment than reliable propulsion. Mechanics called it the grenade, because when it failed, it wasn't subtle. The Ficht disaster was so severe that OMC filed for bankruptcy in 2000. Bombardier eventually rescued the Evinrude name, but the damage was done. This engine didn't just stall, it sank a legacy. At first glance, a 9.9 horsepower Johnson sounds like a safe, simple engine, but if you bought one between 1994 and 1997, you likely found out the hard way. This wasn't the trusty kicker it used to be. This generation was plagued by ignition problems, specifically failing power packs and weak coils that turned easy starts into full-blown workouts. Even when they fired up, they'd often sputter, surge, or stall at idle, sometimes all three in a single trip. The carburetors were sensitive to the slightest bit of debris, gumming up even after short periods of sitting. Cleaning them helped until the next outing. Owners reported frustrating maintenance cycles where fixing the engine meant fixing it again the following weekend. To make matters worse, these 9.9s looked nearly identical to more reliable earlier models, tricking buyers into thinking they were getting a proven motor. Instead, they got a lightweight headache. One mechanic joked, "It's not a 9.9, it's a 50-pound prank." Mercury's early 2000s 125 horsepower two-stroke looked solid on paper, a budget-friendly, carbureted engine with classic Merc DNA. But this 2+2 engine quickly earned a reputation for doing everything except running right. The oil injection system was notorious for silent failures. The pump would stop feeding oil, and the warning sensor wouldn't say a word until your pistons were toast. Some owners ripped the system out and switched to premix just to sleep at night. Then came the carbs. Two would run at idle, all four at speed, but syncing them was a nightmare. The engine would stall cold, stumble mid-throttle, or surge at cruising speeds. Even after a full rebuild, many boaters reported the same gremlins returning within a season. Mechanics hated working on it, owners hated trusting it, and for its claimed 125 horses, it felt closer to 95. The best thing about the Mercury 125, you could always find one cheap, usually sitting on a trailer, not a transom. The Tohatsu 40D was light, affordable, and packed a punch for its size, but reliability, that's where things went sideways. One of the biggest complaints came from the ignition system. The coils were prone to heat soak, which caused the engine to stall mid-run and refuse to restart until it cooled down. This meant for some awkward drifting sessions and a lot of frustrated dockside tinkering. Another bizarre flaw: sometimes the engine wouldn't shut off, even when the kill switch was yanked. Faulty grounding meant that unless you choked it or unplugged the fuel line, it would keep idling like nothing happened. Combine that with a fragile recoil starter and a carb that constantly needed adjustment, and it became clear. This was a motor with commitment issues. Tohatsu had built many dependable engines over the years, but the 40D wasn't one of them. It had just enough power to get you out, and just enough problems to keep you from getting back. The mid-80s Mariner 30 HP is the poster child for small engine unreliability. At first glance, it looked like a simple two-stroke. Compact, easy to service, and affordable. But dig deeper and you'd find a Frankenstein of Yamaha and Mercury parts, slapped together with minimal consistency. Two identical-looking engines could have entirely different internals. That meant repairing one required decoding a parts mystery every time something failed. The ignition system was a mess. CDI boxes and coils routinely failed, especially in salty or humid environments. Spark was either weak, inconsistent, or non-existent. Owners reported engines that only started with full choke, and some wouldn't shut off without pulling the fuel line. Not ideal. Add in a touchy carburetor that needed constant cleaning, overheating from soft impellers, and a rough idle that shook your tiller hand numb, and you've got a small engine that made short trips feel like expeditions. Reliable only if you brought paddles and patience. When Mercury launched the Verado 275 horsepower, it promised a new era of smooth, powerful, supercharged four-stroke performance. And on paper, it delivered. With digital throttle and shift, DTS, a closed-loop cooling system, and a massive torque curve. But in practice, the early Verado 275s had more gremlins than a midnight snack. Chief among them was the supercharger itself. The bearings were a known weak point and often failed prematurely, leading to boost loss and power dropouts. The DTS system, while advanced, also suffered from software glitches and control lag, creating dangerous hesitation when shifting or throttling up. Add to that a complex rigging system, high maintenance costs, and sensitive electronics, and the Verado 275 quickly earned a reputation as more trouble than it was worth. Sure, it sounded cool and made the bow lift like a rocket, but many owners ended up missing their simpler, carbureted motors. For all its tech, this Verado proved that not every leap forward lands cleanly. These weren't just unreliable engines, they were personality tests in disguise. If you made it through ownership without snapping a throttle cable or your sanity, you deserve a medal. Drop your worst engine story in the comments. We read them all, and some are better than C stories. Hit like if this saved you from buying junk, and subscribe for more brutally honest boat content. No sugarcoating, just spark plugs and facts.